How's it going, YouTube? Please like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We'll get you ready for week 5 next on a Kokomo Friday.
Alcantara, Soroka, you look so good in Boca. Peralta, Manoa, bounce back for Aarondola. Giolito, Castillo, Yoshida,
Happy Kokomo Friday and welcome in to Fantasy Baseball today on April 29th. Frank Stampfl joined by Scott White. Today on the show, we had some pitchers get back on track. We'll talk about those, week 5 sleepers, 2-star pitchers, and much more. But first, even before we get to, oh my goodness gracious, welcome back. Welcome back is in order for Ronald Acuna Jr. 3 weeks into the season, he is back on Thursday, goes 1 for 4, 2 strikeouts, but 2 steals already. Are you kidding me? This guy looks healthy. He looks good. And honestly, hopefully he can be the start of the return to offense in fantasy baseball because it was great to see him back on the field.
Yeah, it was great to see him back for sure. Turns out more than a week sooner than expected, which, yeah, I think we saw that coming, right? Even when they announced, even before he began his minor league rehab assignment, right? It's like, you're really going to need 3 weeks. That seems excessive. And so he's back. And the fact he's running, I think, is a good sign for that knee. If you were worried that any skill would be diminished after a torn ACL, it would be what he does on the base paths, obviously a big part of what he provides in fantasy. Of course, now the line from the Braves is that he's not going to be ready to play every day yet. In fact, one of the beat writers was tweeting out they're not expecting him to be ready to play every day until a year after the surgery, which would be in July sometime. But, of course, there's the DH in the NL now. I'm not sure I really believe them about that either. We'll see when the Friday lineups come out if he's in it. He's not supposed to be in it. But if he is in it, DH or otherwise, I think that's a pretty good early indication that they're not going to stick to that line about him not playing every day yet.
Yeah, come on. I mean, the guy was playing the minors. He probably wasn't playing every day there, but he's running. He looks healthy. I get it. This is one of the most prized assets in real life baseball, in fantasy baseball. I understand why they would want to be cautious with him, but hey, don't look now. The Braves are kind of off to a weird start right now. It's a long season. I'm sure they'll be fine, but they could use Ronald Acuna's bat in the lineup. The rest of season projections, according to Steamer over on Fangraphs, have Ronald Acuna at 32 homers and 27 steals. Scott, for fun, let's just say I set the over-under at 59.5 home runs and steals combined. From here until the rest of the season, would you take the over-under for Ronald Acuna?
That sounds high to me. That sounds high. I'm not saying it's impossible, but usually when you're projecting something, you want to make the estimate a little on the conservative side. He has only missed what though, 3.5 weeks, or the season started on a Thursday, so I guess 3 weeks.
3 weeks exactly, yeah.
3 weeks, which isn't really that much.
Over. He's going over, Scott. 24 homers and 17 steals in 82 games last year. He's a freak, man.
Yeah, but what if he's not playing every day for 2 months?
I mean, I could see it maybe for the first couple of weeks, but man, by the time we get to late May, he's playing every day. I think he is, but what do I know?
You're probably right. All right, I'm with you. I'll take the over. I'm with you, Frank.
Yes, for the first time ever, Scott is with me. Speaking of young studs stealing bases, I just wanted to highlight this because I was pretty blown away when I actually saw Julio Rodriguez leads baseball in stolen bases. 1 for 3 with 2 more steals on Thursday. Now has 8 steals again. That leads baseball. slowly coming around. He has 7 hits over his last 6 games. Strikeouts are still an issue. He has at least 1 strikeout in every game but 1. But when he gets on base, he has the green light, and he's been successful so far. So you love to see that from J-Rod. And his counterpart, his rookie counterpart, Bobby Witt, also now on a 7-game hitting streak since being dropped in the order. 9 hits, 3 steals during that time. He stole another base on Thursday. You love to see it from the youngsters. Anyway, that was all ahead of Oh My Goodness Gracious. Take it away, Susan.
Oh my goodness gracious!
All right, Scott, what made you say oh my goodness gracious on Thursday?
Well, what made me say oh my goodness gracious wasn't anything that happened on the field, and it's probably going to be a pretty short conversation. But Adalberto Mondesi with the torn ACL already out for the season. When the knee injury first happened, it seemed like they were downplaying. He's sore. Maybe he'll go on the IL. Maybe he won't. Torn ACL. Done. He gave you 5 steals. Hopefully that wasn't 1 steal per round. Hopefully you drafted him a little later than that, because that's all you're getting from him. It's over already. And you always feel like you should have seen it coming. But man, you only have 2 ACLs to tear. Like at some point, like how many ways can it go wrong? Yeah, frustrating for sure.
It's rough. I feel so bad for the guy too. It's just he cannot stay on the field again. This is Adalberto Mondesi, torn ACL, out for the rest of the season. Somebody asked me earlier on Thursday morning, Scott, if they can drop Mondesi in I believe a 10-team categories dynasty league. What do you think about that?
Probably not. It'd be easier to say no if it was deeper than 10 teams.
Mm-hmm.
And if it wasn't a categories league. Yeah, probably not. Probably need to hold on to him in that format.
All right. Well, on to next year. Let's see what Mondesi does, I guess, in spring training, or we'll probably read something about what he's doing in winter ball, and we'll get excited, and he'll be a top 7 round pick again, somehow, some way. Oh my goodness gracious for me. Zach Wheeler, nice little bounce back. Actually, it was a very good bounce back. His best start of the season up against the Rockies. The game was in Philadelphia, so you get the Rockies on the road, but they've been playing pretty good on the road. 6 shutout innings for Zach Wheeler, 1 hit, 4 walks, 7 strikeouts, 11 swinging strikes on 90 pitches in this one. He only allowed 2 hard hit balls. Don't love to see that the velocity still is not up where it was last year, Scott. He was sitting 95 miles per hour with the fastball. Last year, that was 97 for Zach Wheeler. But slowly, the results are starting to come back. The walks here, not great, but strikeouts, you love to see it. Limiting the hard contact. I think we're slowly coming around here with Zach Wheeler. Remember, he didn't have a spring training, so this is basically his spring training.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was a little disappointed that the velocity didn't climb anymore from the previous start. It did improve last time out, but it's still more than a mile per hour short of where it was last year. And so I hope he's not plateauing. But other than the 4 walks, the results were good. And, I choose to be encouraged by it, I would say.
Makes sense to me. I would assume that we're starting him next week at home against the Texas Rangers.
Yep.
The Texas Rangers, by the way, for the big bats that they brought in, Corey Seager and Marcus Semien, not that they're doing anything right now, they are a team that you want to throw your pitchers against. The Rangers are 29th in weighted on base average against right-handed pitching this season. So make sure Zach Wheeler is back in your lineups next week. Let's take a look at a few other pitchers, Scott, who got back on track. Freddie Peralta, now 2 strong starts in a row. This one at the Pirates, 6 shutout innings, 3 hits, 0 walks to 7 strikeouts. And then Trevor Rogers also makes it 2 strong starts in a row after that blow-up start he had, his second start of the season at the Nationals in this one. 6 innings, 1 run, 4 strikeouts to 2 walks. It wasn't a standout performance, and the fastball velocity was actually down 1 mile per hour for Trevor Rogers, but the results are there for both him and Freddie Peralta. What'd you see?
Yeah, so there's a couple weird things going on with both of these guys. Kind of like with Rogers, or kind of like with Wheeler, I should say. I'm not totally like relieved and okay, there's it's going to be smooth sailing from here. Of course, I had concerns about Trevor Rogers coming into the season. But the swinging strike rate has been pretty unimpressive so far, as it was down the stretch last year. And the changeup in particular has been such a critical pitch for him to this point in his career. It just isn't playing the same. 8 of his 9 swinging strikes in this one were on pitches other than the changeup. I guess the easier way to say that was he had 1 swinging strike on the changeup today. And Freddie Peralta, it's kind of a similar story. His slider, really both of his breaking balls, to the extent he has 2 different ones, it played a lot better last year. It was getting a lot more whiffs, like a big discrepancy in that rate early on, including in this start. Like he's really just doing it with the fastball right now. And I don't think that's going to be a formula for success over the whole season. And I'm not saying like it's time to panic and move Freddie Peralta and Trevor Rogers, but I think it's still up in the air. If they're totally fine, if they're going to be who you drafted them to be, so whatever you decide to do with them, that's what you have to keep in mind.
And I see similarities between the two, Scott, because they're both young-ish starting pitchers who obviously nobody threw much in the shortened 2020. And then both of these guys saw a pretty big increase in their workload last year. And yeah, again, being as young as they are, I mean, it's pretty taxing. And now they're coming off of that. So how does the body respond? How do the pitches respond? How crisp are those pitches? And right now you make a good point, because I just looked up those exact pitches. Trevor Rogers' changeup, the swinging strike rate is 12.5%. That was entering Thursday. Last year, it was 19%. And Freddie Peralta's slider, entering Thursday, 7.8% swinging strike rate. Last year, that was 20%. So
big difference. Yep.
Yeah, massive for those guys right now.
And another thing worth pointing out is that it hasn't been talked about so much because the focus has been on offense and how offense is down around the league here in April. Strikeouts are down around the league too, which particularly if you're comparing it to last April. April is usually the worst month for strikeouts. It's usually the worst month for offense. But compared to last April, strikeouts are down, and that's after decades and decades of strikeouts rising every year. That trend appears to be reversed here early on. And, I've noticed with particular pitchers, like Alek Manoah has been great this year, and the swinging strike rate's great. He has exactly a strikeout per inning, which you want to think of as a great strikeout rate. Michael Kopech has less than a strikeout per inning. Yeah, there are tons of examples like that where you think of big strikeout guys who have big stuff, and their strikeout rates, you look at them and it's just like, I expect it to be higher than that. So I don't know exactly what to make of that, particularly since hitters are struggling so much. It's not because they're not putting the bat on the ball. One thought that occurred to me is, well, strikeouts declined after the sticky substance ban went into effect last year. This is the first April we're seeing with it in effect, and them cracking down even more because they're checking the actual hands of the pitchers as they walk off the mound, as opposed to just their belts and hats and places where they may have normally hid sticky substance. They're just going straight to the hand. So even less they can get away with. And maybe that's having an impact. I don't know. Maybe baseball's not as crazy as we think it is. Like, they're going about these changes in kind of a piecemeal fashion with the deadened balls and the sticky substance ban, and next year we're going to get the infield shift ban. In concert, you could see how this could all add up to making it no longer a 3 true outcomes game, getting back to the preferred aesthetic of fielding plays and people running around the bases. I'm not saying the rollout of this new ball has gone great. There definitely seems like there are things that can be tweaked, but 3 years from now, it may be a sport with a better aesthetic. They may have fixed a lot of what ailed it. It's just painful getting there.
I hope you're right, Scott, because I am tired of talking about a new ball, a new environment, sticky substances every single year. It's, we've got some new kind of wacky change that we have to work into our analysis. And look, I'm not complaining about it. It's part of the job. I love doing this. You love doing this, but it
Go
makes
ahead
it hard.
and complain.
It makes it
It's
hard, Scott.
crazy.
It
Makes
does make
us
it
look
hard.
like idiots.
It's
And
hard.
you know what? Maybe we are.
Man, you mentioned Alek Manoah. Let's talk about a few studs being studs. Pitcher edition. Manoah, 4 straight quality starts to open the season. This one against the division rival Boston Red Sox. 7 shutout innings, 3 hits, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts here. Justin Verlander, ho-hum, 3 straight quality starts for him. 2 going 7+ innings. His ERA is 1.73. His whip, 0.69. Velocity on all of his pitches up on Thursday. I know we said this about Carlos Rodon the other day, Scott, but like Rodon might be start for start in the discussion for the best pitcher in baseball. If Justin Verlander is just Justin Verlander, he's probably in that discussion as well. So he's looked awesome. And then your boy, Kyle Wright, just another one as well. 3 straight, third quality start in his first 4. His 3rd straight start with 8+ strikeouts for Kyle Wright. This was the first time we kind of saw the walks get in the way. 4 walks to 8 strikeouts, but 7 innings, 1-run ball. The ground ball rate up this season for Kyle Wright just continues to look like that breakout candidate. What'd you see from Wright, Manoah, Verlander?
So your point about Verlander is well taken. And, if we're just talking who's going to have the best fantasy season, it could be Verlander. Verlander has the advantage over those two, Burns and Rodon, in terms of expected workload. Even coming back from Tommy John surgery, I don't expect it to limit him much. It's more of a pitch for pitch thing. Burns and Rodon probably put him ahead of Verlander in terms of how good they are pitch for pitch. But yeah, Verlander's been great. Top 10, maybe top 5 rest of way is how I'd rank him. Manoah, I mentioned the strikeout rate is a little disappointing, but he's not alone in that regard. And Wright continues to look like somebody you're glad you picked up in week 1.
100%. I mean, if he is not the biggest breakout so far, I don't know who is. I mean, I'm sure I'm forgetting someone right now, but Kyle Wright has been awesome. Scott, I saw you moving up to SP 36 in your rankings. I have him at 43. Probably deserves to move up a little bit. Chris has him inside of his top 40. Again, that is Kyle Wright. I've got Manoah at SP 20, Scott. Any thought to move him up even further? I know you have him at 26. Not a huge disparity, obviously.
I'd have to look at who I have right ahead of him.
So you've got Darvish, Kershaw, Musgrove, Peralta, Barrios.
I feel like I have a Manoah about as high as I can have him because I'm not ready. Like I haven't soured on any of those top 25 types coming in, like Darvish and Kershaw, who are right ahead of him. So I'm not saying Manoah can't crack that group, but I'm not ready to do that yet with him.
All right. Yeah. I mean, really the difference is you have him at the bottom of that tier. I have him at the top of that tier. So I love what I've seen from him thus far. Let's talk about some hitters, Scott. Alec Boehm, some waiver wire hitters at that. Alec Boehm goes 1 for 4 with his 2nd home run of the season. He is 64% rostered, 6 home games next week. Would you consider Alec Boehm a must-add hitter right now, playing every day?
Well, I mean, the fact he plays third base, there is somebody in your league who should probably be not just rostering Boehm, but starting him, because third base is terrible. And as somebody who just lost Adalberto Mondesi in a 16-team league, I don't know what to do about it. Boehm's already gone. I'd have to pick up Patrick Wisdom or something. I don't know. Boehm is hitting the ball incredibly hard. His strikeout rate is about half of what it was last year, which is more in line with what we expected all along. We expected him to be a good contact hitter, great on base skills. He had a home run today, obviously. I think that's still the biggest question because he doesn't put the ball in the air a lot. But if he hits it hard enough, it may not matter. He may have a high enough home run to fly ball rate that he emerges as a true standout at third base. I think he's one of the most interesting hitter pickups if he is still available in your league.
Again, that is Alec Bohm. Let's talk about a few outfielders, Scott. And we were talking beforehand, every day it seems like there's so many outfielders emerging that we need to talk about who are available in a good amount of CBS leagues. So on Thursday, the names that we have: Brandon Marsh. We keep talking about Taylor Ward, rightfully so. Taylor Ward has been awesome. Brandon Marsh, very quietly, has been very good as well. 3 for 4 with an RBI. He picked up his third steal of the season. He's batting .340. Strikeout rate is down. Line drive rate is ridiculous right now for Brandon Marsh. A few other names: Andrew Benintendi went 2 for 3 with a double. He's batting .393. Austin Hayes, 4 for 5 with 3 doubles on Thursday. Robbie Grossman's hit 3 for 5. Now has 13 hits over his last 7 games. Doesn't have any home runs or steals, but he's batting .327. Kind of an odd line for Robbie Grossman right now. And then Andrew McCutchen went 3 for 4, hit his first home run of the season. Scott, is there one or two standouts for you from that group? Brandon Marsh, Benintendi, Austin Hayes, Grossman, McCutchen.
Yeah, I have a couple actually on my top 10 sleeper hitters for this week, including Marsh, because the Angels are in line to face 6 right-handers, so he's not going to have much interference from Joe Adell this week. And yeah, he's been, it's kind of like, it's a similar profile to Alec Bohm. Doesn't make as much contact as Bohm, but it's hard contact. Is it in the air? Does he put it in the air enough to deliver the power numbers we're looking for? Well, Marsh also has some speed to fall back on. So I would say that roster rate needs to be continuing to rise, understanding he's a platoon player and you may have to pick your spots with him. Let's see who else. I considered Grossman and Benintendi, and I may slot one or the other in to these top 10 sleeper hitters. When I look at it again, it's not completely written yet. But obviously neither one, they're hot, but it's non-home run type of hits. And that's, of course, going to be the case for both of them. I think it's going to continue to be the case. I do have Austin Hayes in my top 10 sleeper hitters for this week. I like the Orioles matchups. I also have his teammate. I don't know if Chris talked about him yesterday, but Anthony Santander.
Yep, we did.
He's high on the sleeper list for this upcoming week because I like those Orioles matchups.
Yeah. He's rocking the specs now, Scott. I don't know if you saw it. He's wearing the glasses, Anthony Santander. So
yeah. Has that been going on all season? I know I caught somebody tweeting about it yesterday, but I
don't know if it's been all season. It's definitely been at least recently, but it would make sense.
The vision appears to be improved. He's already more than halfway to his career high in walks.
Right.
And if that's something he can continue, like that was the big, other than staying healthy, he hasn't been able to stay healthy, but plate discipline was the big issue for him. Put the bat on the ball a lot, put it in the air a lot. If he walks a lot, or at least a decent amount, I could see him having a breakthrough season.
Again, that is Anthony Santander. Scott, would you put Taylor Ward and Randall Grichuk ahead of all the outfielders we just mentioned?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because those are really the ones that have really popped the past week or so. So again, Taylor Ward, Randall Grichuk, they're ahead of this group, but Brandon Marsh, we'll talk about him again a little bit later on when we get to Scott's week 5 sleepers, but someone you should be paying attention to right now. I don't want to talk about Eric Hosmer every single day. I feel like I've done that this week. I mean, he just keeps hitting, right? So I will quickly mention he went 2 for 4, is now batting .415 on the young season. He's 41% rostered and has 6 games next week. One other name here, Scott. Gio Urshela went 3 for 5 with a run and an RBI. On Thursday, multiple hits in 3 of his last 4 games. He's batting .321, which is great. OPS, not so great, 770. But he's only 30% rostered, Gio Urshela, and he has dual eligibility, third base and shortstop. I just feel like this number should be a little bit higher than 30%. What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, he's been just a singles guy, like almost literally. He has one extra base hit. It was a home run. And he seemed like an obvious casualty of the new dead in baseball last year after a couple years where his power production was halfway decent. He puts the bat on the ball a lot, but I don't know. I think he's fine if you need a fill-in option. Let me see the Twins. The Twins actually have the most favorable hitter matchups of any team this week. And yet I didn't seriously consider Gio Urshela for my top 10 sleeper hitter. So what does that tell you?
All right. I do like his lineup context too. He's batted 4th or 5th in basically every game. Eventually, Carlos Correa and Jorge Polanco should come around. And when they do, I think there'll be some RBI opportunities for Gio Urshela. If you play in a categories league, Harrison Bader is only 33% rostered. He went 2 for 3 with his 5th steal. Obviously, steals are pretty hard to come by. So if you play in a categories league, look for Harrison Bader. He's got 7 games next week. And for those in deeper leagues, really deep leagues, Mike Moustakas returned on Thursday, went 2 for 3 with a walk, RBI, and 2 runs scored. He is 20% rostered. Fantasy Baseball Today is here to help you dominate your league all season long, but now you can represent your favorite podcast with official Fantasy Baseball Today gear only found on the CBS Sports Store. Discover t-shirts, mugs, sweatpants, laser engraved pint glasses, hats, water bottles, and more to remind your buddies how you got the inside scoop to crush the competition. Right now, Fantasy Baseball Today listeners will get 20% off orders when they use this podcast exclusive code Fantasy Baseball 20 during checkout. That's Fantasy Baseball 20, and it's only available for our listeners. Head over to store.cbssports.com/collections/Fantasy Baseball Today. Yes, that is a very long link. It is in the podcast and YouTube description, so you can find it there. And if you want to hear the latest on top prospects, you can listen to our Saturday episode of Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. That's our 5-minute podcast, which we have Monday through Saturday here, and download and follow wherever you listen to this podcast. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back right after this. News and notes. And we've already talked about this, but once again, the Royals announced Thursday Adalberto Mondesi diagnosed with a torn ACL, and he will miss the rest of the season. Scott, I feel like if Nick Prado or MJ Melendez were doing anything of note in the minors, they probably would be close to being called up right now, but they're just not.
Yeah, and that's not something we've talked about much either, is for all the hitting struggles we've seen in the majors so far. Seen a lot in the minors too. A lot of the top hitting prospects. You and I were discussing some of them before we started recording here. O'Neal Cruz, both the Royals guys, Anthony Volpe of the Yankees, Jose Miranda. More top hitting prospects than not are off to really, really miserable starts in the minors, which I honestly haven't heard if some of the changes that were made in the majors were also made in the minors, like what ball they're using in the minors. I would doubt there's a humidor at every park in the minors. That seems unlikely. So I kind of find that encouraging that, maybe it has more to do with temperature and the short spring training and everything. If it's also happening in the minors like it is in the majors. And I don't have the macro stats, but just considering that many top hitting prospects are struggling, I imagine we're seeing a similar trend in the minors with offense being down.
We've heard this before, but Tony La Russa is hopeful that Luis Robert will return to the lineup on Friday. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. missed Thursday's game after fouling a ball off his foot Wednesday night. X-rays were negative, thankfully. Jose Altuve will begin a rehab assignment at AAA Sugarland, one of my favorite minor league team names. That is just awesome. This weekend, and is expected to return.
I think they changed it from the Skeeters, though. It's no longer the Sugarland Skeeters, which was like, what's the point?
Is it Space Cowboys now?
Something like that. Yeah, I know they changed it, which the Astros, they purchased that affiliate. Like, it seems like you did it for the name, right? Like Sugarland Skeeters. It's iconic at this point.
Yeah, they are now the Sugarland Space Cowboys.
Unbelievable.
You know what?
Wrong.
Unbelievable. You're right, Scott. How could they? Nolan, by the way, Altuve is going to return on Monday if all goes well. Nolan Arenado has been issued a 2-game suspension for his role in that benches clearing brawl on Wednesday against the Mets. We have some updates on those injured starting pitchers. Jack Flaherty advanced to throwing off flat ground from 240 feet on Wednesday. He remains without a timetable dealing with that shoulder injury. Chris Sale threw 7 pitches during a bullpen session this week. He's on the IL with a stress fracture in his right rib cage. It's also just a very random amount, 7 pitches in a bullpen session. All right. Hope he's all right. Lance Lynn is progressing in his throwing program and could return by the end of May. JD Martinez was held out of Thursday's lineup after he aggravated his adductor injury. Doesn't sound great for an older gentleman like JD Martinez. Chris Bryant has now missed 3 straight games due to back stiffness. Also doesn't sound great for somebody who's dealt with a lot of injuries in his career already. Bailey Ober was removed from his start Thursday due to right groin tightness. Mitch Haniger took part in a pregame workout on Thursday, but has yet to be officially activated from the COVID IL. He's apparently not feeling 100%. I mentioned him on yesterday's podcast as a buy low candidate. His StatCast expected numbers are amazing right now. So I would take advantage of this absence for Mitch Haniger and try and buy low. Stephen Kwan has missed 4 straight games due to that hamstring injury. Nick Lodolo, this one came out of nowhere, placed on the IL with a lower back strain, but is expected to return next weekend against the Pirates. So they're hoping for the minimum stay there. Will Myers placed on the IL with a right thumb contusion. Matt Beattie has started 2 straight games. Miguel Sano tweaked his knee on Tuesday night and has been receiving treatment. He did not play Wednesday or Thursday. Ken Giles has been cleared to resume throwing. He's on the IL with a tendon injury in his right middle finger. Scott, do you think Ken Giles is worth a stash in deeper categories leagues right now? He's only 14% rostered.
If you have IL space to stash him, it's a fine idea. I'm not confident he's going to be the solitary closer at any point. It just doesn't seem like the Mariners want to go in that direction. But he seems the most likely candidate to become that once he's healthy, presuming nobody else has become that by that point.
Andres Munoz, I mean, he is fun to watch, and he's been working the 9th inning recently, but who knows? Maybe it'll be him.
That would be the one who's most likely, if not Giles. Yeah, I guess Munoz would be the one to most likely get it before Giles even has a chance.
Jordan Hicks is expected to start Sunday after leaving Tuesday's start with a wrist contusion. Ryan Mountcastle should return to the lineup Friday against the Red Sox. Actually, speaking of Ryan Mountcastle, Scott, I got a good question on Wednesday night. Would you drop Ryan Mountcastle for Eric Hosmer, the way that Hosmer is playing right now?
Look, Ryan Mountcastle was like my number 1 bust pick coming into the season. So with that in mind, I actually don't have a problem with that. I'm not saying it's a must move or anything because I'm not a big believer in Hosmer, but Hosmer's more playable right now, I feel like. Though I have mentioned the Orioles have good matchups this upcoming week. They are, however, at home for the entire week. And you know what? I haven't seen any data about how it's the new dimensions are playing at Camden Yards, but it's still not a good thing for a right-handed hitter, no matter how they've played so far.
I know Chris mentioned on yesterday's podcast that Trey Mancini has been robbed of at least 1 home run because of the new dimension. So I'd have to look more into it. And I think somewhere in there, Scott, you gave Eric Hosmer a compliment. So we're going to count that. I featured him in
what day? Thursday's waiver wire column as one of potential pickup. No, I don't believe that he's breaking out, but there is the one clear change in his profile where he's pulling the ball a lot more, particularly in the air. And that's one way you can potentially make up for a lack of natural power, is just by making sure your fly balls are pulled. So if there is a path for him to have a breakthrough season, that's it. And I don't mind picking him up as a hot hand play and just seeing where it goes. You don't have to fully buy into it yet. Obviously, I want to prioritize a Hosmer over a Taylor Ward or Randall Grichuk, who I still have no idea why Randall Grichuk is available in a third of all CBS sports leagues, but for some reason he is. Yeah,
All right.
Hosmer's not up with them, but I could see picking him up.
All right, let's move on to week 5. The schedule is pretty spread out for next week. We have 3 teams with 5 games. Those are the Cubs, the Rangers, and the Dodgers. 15 teams that have 6 games next week, 11 teams that have 7 games, and 1 lucky team has 8 games. That is the New York Mets. Before we get into 2-start pitchers to add and stream, Scott, who are some of those 2-start options that are on the fringe right now?
Well, I want to mention, I doubt anybody's considering sitting Joe Ryan, but he is a 2-start pitcher this week, and his matchups are at Baltimore versus Oakland. So he's actually my number 1 ranked 2-start pitcher this week, Joe Ryan, who was off to a tremendous start, had his best start yet last time out. And yeah, those matchups are amazing. So he's ahead of some bigger names like Pablo Lopez, Alec Manoah, Dylan Cease. Not that they're, obviously they're all must-starts themselves. I would also say Mackenzie Gore is must-start at Cleveland versus Miami. Zach Gallen, I never thought I'd be saying this at the end of April. But yeah, he's a must-start 2-start. He's a must-start 2-start pitcher against the Marlins and against the Rockies in Arizona. Patrick Sandoval, I would also say, is a must-start pitcher coming off his best start of the year. He hits the White Sox and the Nationals. I want to go as far as to call Carlos Carrasco must-start, coming off that Rocky outing last time. His matchups are the Braves and the Phillies. Pretty rough, but, most people who have him should probably start him. Ranger Suarez, he finally went 6 innings in his latest start. Still having some control issues, but I think he's trending the right direction. His matchups are against the Rangers and Mets. I would call him an advisable start. Less than must start, but advisable. So there was a lot of people after Charlie Morton's last start wanting to know what's up on Twitter and expressing their displeasure in no uncertain terms with Charlie Morton and what he's done for them so far. And I told them, look, you can sit him if you want. You can't drop him. And I stand by that, except for maybe the sitting part, because it turns out he has 2 starts this week. And I get it if you're in a categories league and you just want to be really protective of your ratios. Okay, Charlie Morton could end up doing twice the damage with 2 starts. And it's a risk. But his next start could be the start where it all clicks for him too. In which case, I think in a points league especially, you just gotta cross your fingers and slot him in there. So I'm fine starting Charlie Morton. And yeah, we can go on to the potential sleeper pickups now, I think.
Scott, the way you were describing Charlie Morton, that really sounds like our fortune favors the brave 2-start pitcher week.
I don't think it's just the brave who has to do it, though. I don't know. Well, I mean, have we pinned down exactly what the fortune favors the brave pick is?
No idea.
I might describe Herman Marquez, who last week we were talking about him as a 2-start pitcher. Obviously didn't happen. He's a 2-start pitcher again and has been pretty terrible so far this year. But we know the story with Herman Marquez, where it can turn around very suddenly, and he has 2 starts, hopefully for real this time. And no way I'd do that in a categories league. I probably wouldn't do it in a points league either. But if you're the kind of person who just has to maximize the number of starts on your roster, I would call Herman Marquez the fortune favors the brave pick of the week.
Oof. All right. I can tell you what, I'm sure that my dad will put him in the lineup because my dad in our home league, he's notorious for, he will pick up any 2-star pitcher and just throw him in the lineup. He doesn't,
some people play that way.
It could be Scott White making 2 starts. My dad is picking you up. He's throwing you in the lineup.
Bad idea. Bad idea.
While we're talking about all these, who are other 2-star pitchers you're looking to add and use for next week?
Drew Rasmussen's the big one, coming off that brilliant effort against the Mariners. He gets the Mariners again this week and also gets the Athletics. I'm going to call the Mariners a pretty good matchup. I know they scored a lot of runs so far. But Athletics definitely are. And yeah, hopefully he can keep it going with that slider cutter combo that he was. And those pitches were both moving all over the place in his last start. Got a ton of whiffs with him. So he's the top choice to pick up. Bailey Ober would be, but he left today's start with what was it, a groin injury? Yeah. So they're calling him day-to-day for now, but you know, wouldn't surprise me if he went on the IL. So keep an eye on that. But I like his 2 matchups next week if they do say he's going to make his next turn. Jordan Montgomery might be available in a few leagues at Toronto versus Texas. Some matchups on opposite ends there. But he's usually pretty decent if you're just looking to get an extra start in your lineup. Dakota Hudson, who started here on Thursday and had another strong 6-inning performance. I believe now he's allowed a total, Dakota Hudson has, of, see if I can find it real quick. I thought I had his page open here. I think he's allowed like a total of 3 hits in his last 2 starts. No runs. So, you know, I don't think there's a ton of upside there, but he's been remarkably good at keeping runs off the board during his brief career and gets a lot of ground balls. And his matchups this week are against the Royals and the Giants, opposite ends of the spectrum there. But I would say in points leagues, especially, Dakota Hudson's one you can look at. And this one's digging really deep. Jake Junis, I'm not sure it'll technically be 2 starts. It might technically be 0 starts because he follows an opener. But he's thrived in that role for the Giants so far. They have him throwing his slider a ton, which has always been his best pitch. And he's only rostered in 4% of leagues. Lines up for 2 turns, whether it's as a bulk reliever or a starter. So in points leagues, he's somebody who you could look at as well.
All right. My fortune favors the brave or bold 2-star pitcher of the week is Michael Wacha, who has pitched well thus far. I've got his Fangraphs page open. It's not looking too good here, but the matchups, he is going up against the White Sox and the Angels. So one good one right now. White Sox are not hitting. So that's an okay matchup. And then the Angels are basically hitting everybody. So if you are brave enough, Michael Wacha is the name for you. Some single start streamers. Scott, who you got for next week?
Not as many of those, but I will highlight a couple for you here. We have Tarek Skubal, who was not great. Well, a lot of these pitchers started just today, right? Or was Tarek Skubal yesterday?
No,
that was today. It was today.
Yep.
So yeah, kind of took a step back today. Allowed 6 runs, only 3 of them earned in 5 innings. Didn't get the strikeouts we saw in the previous starts. I think he's still figuring out his pitch mix. I'd like to see him throw the changeup more because it's gotten a lot of whiffs the little bit he's thrown it. His match was against the Pirates, so he's probably the best 1-start option who might be available in your league. 79% rostered. That's kind of really close to the threshold there. Aaron Ashby, I think he's supposed to make another turn. The Brewers are going 6-man right now, and obviously he looked pretty good on Wednesday. Too many walks, but only 1 hit allowed. And hopefully he's trending the right direction. He gets the Reds, who've just been horrible so far. Horrible. And then Michael Lorenzen against the Nationals, I think is an okay. Honestly, I'm not that excited about any of these choices, but it's one of those weeks for the sleeper pitchers.
All right. Michael Lorenzen also has SPARP eligibility, as does Aaron Ashby. So if you're playing a points league and you're looking for a SPARP, both of those names are widely available. The best hitter matchups for next week. Scott mentioned the Twins earlier, then the Astros, the Orioles, the Angels, and the Rockies. The worst hitter matchups, the Cubs, the Rangers, the Guardians, the Dodgers, and the Padres. With that being said, Scott, who are your sleeper hitters for week 5?
Well, you notice the Mets weren't included among those best hitter matchups, even though they're playing 8 games. Facing some tough pitchers in those 8 games. Not saying you should bench all your Mets or anything, but thought it was worth noting. So Taylor Ward, of course, is the number 1 sleeper hitter for this week. You did mention the Angels among the teams with the best matchups. And frankly, I'd want to get Ward in my lineup either way, because he's been good all along, but especially since moving to the leadoff spot, already a 2-homer game, already a separate game where he was a single short of the cycle. He's walking a ton. I think he's got to be in everybody's lineup right now. I probably should hesitate to say that because I'm sure some people are starting like 3 top 20 outfielders. Maybe not in one of those lineups, but somebody in your league should have Taylor Ward in their lineup. Andrew Vaughn, pretty good matchups for the White Sox this week, and his playing time issues are behind him now that Eloy Jimenez is hurt. I mentioned Anthony Santander a little further down on this list, Austin Hayes with the Orioles facing the Twins and Royals in 7 games. I like the Twins matchups themselves. Max Kepler had a 2-homer game the other day. He's made some changes to his approach that might allow him to be fantasy relevant again. He's always done a pretty good job of making contact, so it's a question of how much power he contributes. But the Twins have the best matchups of all this week. 5 of the 7 pitchers on the schedule are righties. And that's also why I have Luis Arias on here, who tends to sit against lefties, but is off to a good start with the batting average. Can't say that about many players across the entire league right now. Randall Grichuk's on here, of course. I feel like he's a staple. Yuli Gurriel, if he's available in your league, and he is in about a quarter of leagues. I think that needs to change. And I think that pretty much covers it. Brandon Marsh, who we mentioned earlier, because the Angels have 6 righties on the schedule, so you could get him in your lineup as well.
Max Kepler is someone I'm especially interested in. Looking at his StatCast page, the exit velocity is higher than ever before. His barrel rate higher than ever before. 302 XBA, 607 expected slug.
So that must have just changed with the 2-homer game, because I was writing him up in waiver wire, and of course the StatCast numbers don't update in real time. They only update the next day.
Mm-hmm.
But basically what both he and Rocco Baldelli, the Twins manager, were saying after that 2-homer game, and he homered the day before as well, was that he's doing a better job of swinging with intent, which I interpreted to mean taking a bigger cut, like on pitches that are in his wheelhouse, like just trying to clobber them, when maybe in the past he would do more of a controlled swing. And, you know, it sounds like that could be what's going on for Max Kepler. Of course, so early in the season, hard to know if it's going to stick. But there may be something there. I mean, in 2019, he hit 36 home runs, right? So it's something we've seen him do before.
All right. While we're talking about hitters, Scott, would you bench any of these in week 5? The struggle is real right now for Joey Votto. 5 straight hitless games. He's batting 129. Strikeouts are way up. Ground balls are way up. Brian Reynolds, 3 more strikeouts on Thursday. His strikeout rate is 31%. And then Jared Kelenic, 0 for 3, 1 strikeout. He's batting 140. Scott, what do you think about benching any or all of Votto, Brian Reynolds, Jared Kelenic right now?
I would be most hesitant to bench Reynolds of the 3, but Votto, Kelenic, I mean, if you have quality alternatives, I'm totally fine with benching them.
All right. Let's get back over to some waiver wire pitchers. I wanted to mention Dakota Hudson was on this list. You talked about him. Chris Flexen, 3 straight quality starts. Scott, I know he is in line for 2 starts next week. However, they are against the Tampa Bay Rays and at the Houston Astros. So we're probably staying away on Chris Flexen, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Brad Keller is another one. You know, all 3 of these pitchers, Hudson, Flexen, Keller, they're kind of similar where like they pitch to contact and they do a good job of limiting hard contact, but they're not very exciting overall. Brad Keller has 3 quality starts in his 4 starts that he's made. 7 innings, 1 run, 3 strikeouts on Thursday. He's getting a lot of ground balls. Scott, any interest in Brad Keller next week against the Cardinals?
No, I don't think so. I'm not saying we'll never have a desire to stream him this year, but I think a 1-start week with, you know, just kind of a middle of the road matchup, I think you can do better.
All right. How about these names in deeper leagues who stood out from Thursday? Reed Detmers now has put together 2 solid starts in a row. Nick Martinez, 5 innings of 2-run ball against the Reds. Jose Quintana, just kind of out of nowhere, 5 innings, 1 run, 9 strikeouts to 0 walks against the Brewers. Austin Gomber has posted back-to-back quality starts, both of them on the road. And then Martin Perez was perfect through 6 innings against the Houston Astros. He wound up 7 innings, 1 run, 4 strikeouts. Scott, in deeper leagues, Detmers, Nick Martinez, Quintana, Gomber, Martin Perez. Anything on those 5?
I can find very little to say positive about those 5. I mean, it was a great start for Quintana. He got the 9 strikeouts. He got a ton of whiffs on 3 different pitches, especially the changeup. But like, where did it come from? Was he doing anything different? I can't see anything there. And obviously, it's been a few years since Jose Quintana has been fantasy relevant. So I'll need to see him do this another turn or 2 before I can start to buy into it. Martin Perez, kind of the same way. He's not allowing hits, back-to-back 2-hit outings. But again, I'm not seeing a lot there that tells me he's a changed pitcher rather than a pitcher who just happened to have 2 good starts. And of course, Reed Detmers is the highest upside of this group, but and you mentioned he had a decent start on Thursday. Not really showing any of that upside this year. He was a strikeout machine in the minors last year, but largely it was on the strength of his curveball. It's supposed to be this elite pitch. It has not played like that this year. His breaking balls, neither one of them is getting any whiffs. And he actually threw his fastball 53% of the time in this one. I don't know that that's going to be a formula for success for Reed Detmers. So I don't see much reason to be encouraged by this start.
The only thing I've noticed with Jose Quintana, his changeup usage is way up this year, 32% entering Thursday's start. That's never been higher than 15% in his career. And it's been his best whiff pitch this season. So something that he's using more, and he's getting whiffs on it.
Well, he got whiffs on it in this start. His swinging strike rate coming into this start was 8%.
Right. Let me pull up and see what it's been on just the changeup. I don't think you need to add him, but I think he's just someone who's on the radar. He also has SPARP eligibility for those who play in points leagues. Quintana's swinging strike rate on the changeup this year is 12.8%, which it's okay. It's not amazing or anything like that. Scott, would you start or sit Tyler Mahle, who's been kind of blah since his opening day start? On Thursday, 5 1/3 innings, 3 runs, 5 strikeouts. He is at the Milwaukee Brewers next week.
I don't think he's an automatic start, but he's not an automatic sit either. You know, it just depends what else you have. The Reds have won 3 games this year, for what it's worth. So he's not getting any favors there from his supporting cast. Not that he's pitched particularly well.
You know, once they started selling off all their pieces, I thought about putting in a wager on their under, the Reds, their season-long win under, and I didn't do it. Feel pretty dumb right now. I probably should have done that.
You know what's funny? They have 3 wins. 1 was saved by Tony Santillan. 1 was saved by Art Warren. 1 was saved by Lucas Sims.
Yeah. Funny how that works, huh? David Bell. Thanks, bud. Some hitting standouts from Thursday. Manny Machado went 4 for 5 with a double. He is batting .395 with an OPS over 1,000. One of the few hitters actually hitting right now. Aaron Judge went 2 for 5 with his 5th home run of the season. He added 4 RBI. I was at the game on Thursday, and I could tell everybody to not go to baseball games in the Northeast in April because they're very cold and they're not very enjoyable because of the weather. It was a fun game. The Yankees won, but by the way, the Orioles, like, you know that they're bad, but watching them live, they're really bad. Jorge Mateo, he had like 2 or 3 errors in that game. They had 5 errors overall as a team. They are just woof.
Listen,
not good.
They've won twice as many games as the Reds. So knock it off.
All right. Austin Riley went 1 for 5 with his 5th home run. Paul Goldschmidt went 3 for 4. He now has multiple hits in 6 of his last 7 games. The batting average is up to 296. And Dansby Swanson went 2 for 3 with a sock and a shoe. His first home run, his 2nd steal of the season. We've been waiting to see a little something out of Dansby Swanson. He's got 7 games next week on the schedule, so hopefully he can keep it rolling. The call to the bullpen for the Padres. Taylor Rogers allowed a hit, but picked up his 7th save of the season. For the Pirates, David Bednar entered in the 8th inning, up 2-1. He faced the heart of the lineup. Chris Stratton comes in the 9th inning. He gives up 4 hits, 2 runs, and takes the loss. I wonder how long this... I really think it's just an arbitration situation here, Scott, where the Pirates don't want to use Bednar as their closer because then they'll probably have to pay him more in arbitration. But
well, I mean, you mentioned Bednar faced the heart of the lineup. They've gone back and forth with the saves.
Yeah,
I think the 2 clearest bullpen tandems in baseball right now are the Royals and the Pirates. Like, if anybody's going to emerge to be the sole closer in Pittsburgh, it's got to be Bednar, and more outings like this from Stratton will make it happen. But I'm not ready to predict it's going to happen because of this outing, you know?
Yeah. The answer is probably to just let him pitch the 8th and the 9th inning because it's not really working for Chris Stratton right now. For the Marlins, Cole Sulser picked up his first save with Anthony Bender working 2 days in a row. For the Astros, Rafael Montero gave up a solo homer, but picked up his first save. Ryan Stanek got the save on Wednesday night. For the Royals, Josh Stallman entered the 8th inning with a 1-run lead. He faced the 5, 6, and 7 in the lineup. He gave up 2 hits, an earned run that led to a tie game. Scott Barlow pitched in the 9th, and then Taylor Clark picked up the save in extra innings. For the Blue Jays, Jordan Romano allowed a hit. He now has 9 saves. Scott, it's crazy. It's like the closers, the elite closers, are kind of separating themselves right now. Josh Hader has 10 saves on the season. Jordan Romano has 9. That is just, I mean, that's more than some of my roto teams total right now.
I did not realize Hader got his total up that high.
It's crazy.
I knew Romano was off to that kind of start, but yeah, I mean, those 2 are definitely distancing themselves from everyone else. And did you mention in here that Hader's been used so much recently, Devin Williams had to get the save here on Thursday and struck out the side. I mean, he'd be a great closer for many teams, but Brewers obviously don't need him in that role.
Yeah. I did this on a few of my roto teams this year, Scott, but I'm really starting to lean into get at least one lockdown closer on your roto category teams. And then I guess just try and figure out the rest later. I did that on my main event team. I got Emmanuel Class A. It's not really working out so well.
Well, that's the thing. Like, who really is a lockdown? I mean, are you just saying a guy who is known to have exclusivity in the role?
Yeah,
at the start of the year, which would have included Mark Melancon, but
correct.
Maybe you exclude him on principle. I mean, part of the issue with that approach, the biggest part of the issue with that approach is in the industry leagues. They got moved up to like round 3, right? So you're giving up an MVP caliber batter, a Cy Young caliber arm, to get a save source, basically. So that's the biggest issue with that. But the second issue with that is like there's a lot of turnover in that role, you know? Like, of course, guys like Chapman and Kimbrel and Jansen have done it year after year, but they're pretty rare. I guess Hader is you could have that level of trust in him. But, even Liam Hendricks, he's only done it a couple years. He's off to a bad start this year. I think he'll be fine, but I can't say it with 100% certainty.
Yeah, no, it's fair. There was really 8 or 9 guys, Scott, and it kind of ended with Chapman. I was worried about, but you knew the role was going to be there for him. Kenley Jansen is still a lockdown closer. Ryan Presley, who's injured now, but yeah, there was like 8 or 9. And usually in my category leagues, I tried to get at least one and then figure out the rest later. And I think that's going to be the approach for the time being. What else do we have here? The Red Sox, Matt Barnes pitched in the 8th inning down 1-0. He faced the heart of the lineup, 4, 5, and 6. Hansel Robles then pitched in the 9th inning. Red Sox bullpen's kind of a mess right now. And the Angels, Raisel Iglesias. Ah, yes, he's another one of those. He picked up his 5th save of the season. To stream or not to stream for the weekend. Let's start with Friday. Eliezer Hernandez versus the Mariners. Madison Bumgarner at the Cardinals. Tyler Anderson versus the Tigers. Rich Hill at the Orioles. And Adrian Hauser versus the Cubs.
I don't want any of them. But if you're making me, probably Hauser against the Cubs would be my first choice. Hernandez against the Mariners, as much as they've been striking out, that might go okay. But yeah, it's not a great selection.
All right, let's move to Saturday. Cole Irvin versus the Guardians. Chris Archer at the Tampa Bay Rays for his revenge game. Bryce Elder at the Rangers. Dane Dunning versus the Braves. Taijuan Walker versus the Phillies. Chad Kuhl versus the Reds. I guess it's just not a good weekend to stream, Scott.
Yes. This is an even worse group than the last one. I don't know that I want to be associated with any of these names. Chad Kuhl against the Reds?
Question mark? I don't know. How bad is Cleveland against lefties? They are 23rd in weighted on base average. That warrants an okay for Cole Irvin, but don't feel great about it. For Sunday, we've got Daniel Lynch versus the Yankees, Nick Pivetta at the Orioles, Chris Paddock at the Rays, Mitch Keller versus the Padres, Michael Lorenzen at the White Sox, and Jordan Hicks versus the Diamondbacks.
Is Jordan Hicks okay? He left his last start with an injury.
Yeah, he's going to start on Sunday.
I guess him then. I don't want to recommend Mitch Keller again.
Lorenzen's the one. The White Sox cannot hit right now. They are 30th in WOBA against righties.
Okay. I'm with you, Frank.
Yes, 2. I'm with you, Franks, in one podcast. With that, we're going to wrap it up. For Scott, I am Frank. Thank you all for listening and watching Fantasy Baseball today. We'll be back again on Monday. Bye-bye.